Welcome back. Today we do a really quick one on KZ Merga. I don't really have a ton of things to say about Merga. It's very similar to KZ Vader High Res, which I reviewed actually yesterday. So this isn't really going to be much different. The two are basically the same idea, kind of a treble heavy, brighter version of KZ tuning. And this one just happens to be priced, it's two dynamic drivers instead of three, and it's priced lower than Vader. So this one is more affordable. It's kind of a similar, it's actually a very nice looking shell. They did a really nice packaging on the driver. Instead of switches, they actually threw a little KZ placard in there. So you can almost see where the shell is cut out for the switches, but instead you get a KZ logo. So shell design, I think the look of it is quite nice. This is Vader, which, as I said, I talked about yesterday. There's a video posted on that one. So let's kind of jump into it. And as I was just talking about, I think these are similar yet different than Vader High Res. Three dynamic drivers in this one, two in this one, different driver models, and that's going to sound slightly different. But both of them are essentially brighter, lower volume V-shaped sets. Merga is definitely slightly brighter and sounds more V-shaped, and it works well at the lowest volumes. I thought it was very similar to Kiwi Ears Forteza, and let's take a quick look at what was going on with that one. And you can kind of see where these were all headed. So Kiwi Ears Forteza, even more V-shaped. That is the one in the blue with even more bass. So Vader High Res and Merga essentially have the same bass shelf that sort of mostly follows the Harman up until about there. So pretty much the same bass level on Merga and Vader. And then as you lift off into the treble, Merga and Vader start to separate. So at least I will talk about Vader, the high res, without boosting the treble with the switches. The bass version or the bass level of treble on Vader was actually lower than it is in Merga. And so Merga is in the red, and you can kind of see it. There's a good 2 or 3 decibel difference between the treble levels. So where I liked Vader at 1100 without boosting the treble at all, basically Merga is probably 111. Or it was 1111, whichever one it was the highest version of treble on Vader. So as I talked about Vader, that was probably about the limit on treble level that I thought was comfortable, that I kind of enjoyed listening to. So to have Merga be a step above that, I think it gets a bit uncomfortable for long sessions without turning the volume really, really, really down. And I said the same thing about Forteza, and you can kind of see Forteza almost splits the difference through some of the treble. So kind of upper mids, it's kind of close, and then it actually does jag up a little bit higher. So, but all three of these, I think, were on the same ballpark. They all really pitch towards lower volume. People who listen at really low volume but still want to get a sense of a lot of treble, and that's what all three of these sets are really pitched towards. So you guys are, you kind of know what you're buying. This isn't a general purpose set that you would kind of say, well, I want to buy Vader or maybe Trio. These are sets that are not really similar. This one is very much a brighter, more treble version of those. So again, this tuning is for people who are just seeking that bright, low volume set. KZ has a ton of other sets, as I was talking about, that are more general use and balance, if that's what you're into. This one, much like Vader, very much a specialist set. Vader high res versus Merga, I think even with the price advantage going to this one I think was kind of in that $12 range, and this one I think is in the $20 to $30, somewhere in the middle there. I think Vader does sound less intense, but has better treble balance. I think Vader pushed, as I was talking about, Vader pushed just enough for me, and Merga takes it a step further, which is a step further away from general appealing for me. It's pretty intense, and it basically required me to turn the volume way down. Whereas Vader, you can kind of get away with a little more volume and hear more of the treble and the upper treble. This one, very much a upper mids, lower treble style, because you're turning the volume down so low. So the bass on Merga, most modern KZ dynamic drivers, and I'm not sure which one this one came from, but it's quite nice to look at. But most of them have a tighter, cleaner response. Merga's no different. Like Vader, you get some sub bass, but the style really needs some transition into the mid bass. So to pair with that treble, they very much took this Harmon-ish. We're going to put a bunch of energy out here, and that's not even a bunch. That's kind of a decent level of treble. But then drop it down so you're getting super clean mids. But you have to remember that this is a ton of treble. They didn't need to drop this down this here. This is kind of, if this was down below Harmon level, you can do something like this, and it kind of sounds balanced. But there's no need to drop this so low when you're putting so much treble energy. You're getting so much brightness and presence from that. You don't need to, do that move, but that is what they chose to do. So the mids, again, volume needs to be lower than Vader to avoid that too sharp, too thin, too intense. This one gets really intense really quickly. This one is very much like Forteza in that respect, more so than Vader. And then on treble, I think Vader on the low setting was about my limit on low volume. So Merga is brighter and really only works at really low volume for me. And as a result, you hear more upper mid emphasis rather than better treble balance that you get on Vader. So even though Vader, and I probably have the graph somewhere, or maybe not, but so when we look at Vader, even at the lower volume of Vader, the lower treble level on Vader, sort of just hovering above the Harmon target. If you have the right tips, you can bring this down so it sounds more similar to some general purpose sets. And I think that was fine. This sort of gives you a nice even emphasis. I think they got that right. But where Merga really pushed it really hard, and where that red line is, that's really tough to deal with at any sort of volume above very low volume. So. And what happens is you end up hearing a lot of this and not really so much of this because you've turned the volume down. This is essentially going to SPL all the way down. This is going to kind of pop out because it's almost 10 or 12 dB above this. Yeah, it's really hard to achieve an even treble balance when you turn the volume down that low and this kind of tuning. So this one is just quite intense and focused. And the same thing on the stage. I think one of the biggest differences between these two comes down to how that treble is handled and in what volume you're listening to. This one, you're still going to get a lower treble and an upper treble because you're not going so low on the volume. This one, going so low on the volume, is just going to be very much an upper mid style set. You're not really going to have that upper treble to expand the stage. It becomes very much in your head, very much focused, center image focused. It becomes very intense in that respect. So again, that's sort of another reason why I preferred Vader. So that is what I got on Merga. So thank you guys again for tuning in, and I will see you next time.